fun and games. We've got a really long meeting to get through, so I think we better get going before we run out of time. Okay, with a quorum of the board present, I call this meeting to order. Roll call. Commissioner Eritz, not here. Commissioner Bakke, here. Commissioner Evans.
Here.
Commissioner Gibbs.
Here.
Commissioner Lalonde, not here. Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Timbo, not here. All right, Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair, could I just have the floor for a few minutes before we get to the consent agenda?
Absolutely.
Just while we got everybody here, just wanted to, it's not very often we have to lose an employee, but we did lose an employee last month. Tori Ewing, after about 4 years with us, and a great guy. I think we all really miss Tori, and it's been a difficult time for the whole staff in that transition. And I just wondered if we might be able to take a moment of silence just to remember Tori amongst ourselves and recognize him as a member of our organization for those 4 years, and really just reflect on how lucky we all are to have gotten as far as we have through this pandemic, and many of us have had the sickness and gotten through it, and I think it's amongst our staff it's been a lot of reflection in the last month about that, and just how lucky we are to be in a position now to be vaccinated, have some treatments that seem to be working, and all those things, and the number of people we've all lost. I mean, in difficult time. And so I just thought we might take a minute in recognition of losing that, losing our employee, to reflect on that, and for those of us that know him on Tori specifically.
Let's do that. Moment of silence for Tori. I like that.
Thanks.
Thanks. May you rest in peace and his family do well.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on with consent agenda. Consent agenda is made up with routine day-to-day items that require board action but do not appear to have significant impact. Items may be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion by vote of any board member. Today's items include A, approval of board meeting minutes from September 2021. B, payroll checks totaling $89,061.31. C, maintenance operation checks number 26300 to 26370, totaling $158,010.34. D, approve passenger facility charge totaling $52,766.20. And E, financial reports for September 2021. Are there any items that the board would like to look at separately? Okay.
I'll make the motion to accept the consent agenda as presented and outlined.
I have a motion
I'll second.
and a second with no discussion. Any further discussion on?
Looks like we covered a lot of ground last month.
All right. With no further discussion, all in favor of accepting the consent agenda as stated, do so saying aye.
Aye.
Favor, nay? The ayes have it. Okay, on to the director's report.
Thank you. A lot going on over the last month or so. We're following up on the meetings we had back in September with the airlines. This time of year, we'd normally be talking about summer, scheduling for the next summer. It's still not quite that time yet. Probably as we get closer to Christmas holidays, they'll be setting summer schedules, but we are doing some follow-up on those meetings we had. We've extended a couple incentive letters out to airlines to continue the conversation about some new service. We're trying to set up some calls between our consultant, Mike Lum, and myself. We're working on a couple different airlines trying to get a route planning call in to talk about specific routes. I think there's some Still some potential for summer of 2022 to have some new service. And so we're trying to get those calls scheduled now so we can kind of get that further down the road. We have a little bit of local incentive money that we can use despite not having a SCASD grant. We probably have enough to do a guarantee on maybe a first year of service. So I think we probably are going to put some of those incentive dollars in an offer to a couple airlines to see if we can get that, get some new flights in. And so the Tourism Board had extended some dollars a couple years ago that we can use also for some direct service, and so we're going to put some letters around that. So we're trying a couple different things. We'll see. I mean, there's still just a tremendous amount of uncertainty in the industry. A lot of different factors. Montana right now is losing a tremendous amount of service, pretty much across the board, and that's mainly because Montana did so well this last summer in rebuilding service. And so when you look across most of the country, they didn't see the return to normal that we saw over the summer. There's still a lot of markets that are ex-airfare or ex-air seats from where they were in 19. And so a lot of the business travel is not back. Obviously, certainly government employees are not traveling very much, and we have a lot of those in our market. So we are seeing service being tailored back. Minneapolis, obviously. Alaska is going to reduce their schedule down to 5 days a week here in a couple weeks. And we're seeing that pretty much across the state. The one exception being Bozeman. They're really keeping a lot of their service as that market continues to just really explode. Looking ahead, I do think there's some opportunity for 2022. I expect most of our normal routes to be back in place. We'll certainly be talking to United in the next coming weeks about Chicago in hopes that that would be back, and potentially some other routes too. Minneapolis, the uncertain restart time really helps in some of those discussions because I think some of the carriers will look at that as an opportunity to maybe reshuffle the market a little bit. So that's favorable. The Chamber, and talking to Shane over the last couple of weeks, is trying to redouble their efforts to put together a local incentive. Shane, I think, is really seeing that it's going to require a longer term effort for us to maintain some growth in this market from an air service perspective. And so he has a goal of really doubling the money we have on hand, maybe even more, to try and make us competitive for a couple different routes going forward. I think that's a good goal. We've only talked about it as of yet. They really haven't started those efforts to go out and try to raise those dollars. But I really do think that's going to be a positive influence if we can have some incentive dollars on hand that we can use in the event that we don't see a SCASB grant. That's one of the sort of disappointing things about the coming out of the pandemic. A lot of money has been given to airports for capital, but we could really use some incentive dollars, and even just a fraction of what's been put into the capital side of airports would fund most of the applications that are out there for new air service, which we could all really use. And so hopefully, if there is new money going into some of these programs over the next year, that might be something we could get. Right now, DOT is anticipating that they would have a grant application in December. They initially said November. I suspect it won't end up until March. And so hopefully that next round of application will be wrapped up by summer, so we'd still have the opportunity to pursue 2023. So that's kind of where we are with air service in the Chamber. You guys probably saw the news has picked up the story of Minneapolis. And there's quite a bit of negativity in the Facebook postings that are on the various news outlets right now. A lot of misinformation on there, which we've tried to get on and respond to some of it. But certainly a lot of negativity around the cost of flying in Great Falls, the access to flying in Great Falls. And I think a lot of the misunderstanding around that is, Bozeman's NSA is now 114,000, and their airport boardings are about 1 million. So they're getting a tremendous increase in the amount of service over there. So that's the most frequent thing we're hearing is, oh, well, there's more flights in Bozeman. Well, of course there's more flights in Bozeman. And if you look just 10 years ago, I was looking at this last week, the MSA, Bozeman's population back 10 years ago was 37,000. So it was much smaller than we were, and now they're 3 times our size. And it's, when you consider the university and all the seasonal people living there, it's quite a bit bigger market. And so, as we've been saying, it's like many things in Great Falls, we're going to need that growth over the next 10 years to sustain, what we have and continue to grow it. And I think that remains an open question in the community is if we'll see that growth or not. And so a lot of challenges ahead.
I was following whoever, and I applaud if it was you or Laura, whoever was doing the Facebook postings, but it's sort of a catch-22. You can't possibly explain this complex subject in any kind of meaningful response that most people will even bother to read.
Right. And a lot of them don't even read the article.
No, they don't. So nice try, and I thought about jumping in myself a couple times, and I thought, well, no more adding fuel to the
Right.
Yeah. It is what it is, and it's a subject. Really, it's another symptom of lack of growth. The community has got to see a growth in both tourism and in population. For the air service to continue to move forward as we lose those 50-seat jets. On the parking side, the transition is it's been lumpy. Not really rocky, but certainly lumpy.
But the parking lot's looking full.
It does look pretty good, yeah. We've had some problems with the card readers not reading cards consistently. For some reason, they're not always reading the tickets consistently on the new machines we got. We're still waiting on new decals for a couple of the machines. We got some decals yesterday, which will be replacing the entire front of the machine, which I think will provide a little bit better guidance as to what to do. And then you just really, until you encounter it, you can't really anticipate how the public is going to interact with these machines. We've had them stuffing cash into small holes of the machine. I can't even explain it. There's literally been cash shoved into the machine, to where it ends up in the back of the machine, because even though it all says credit card, and we've tried to add some announcements on the PA and some other places, there's still some folks trying to pay with cash any way they can. As far as we haven't been able to put cash on a rock, so we've had a lot of calls out to the machines. The call function is not working well. There's some kind of delay in the programming so that it rings and rings and rings for a long time until it finally calls us. So we have a number of maintenance tickets with the vendor to try and get some of this stuff fixed. And then some of it, we hoped that we would be able to have a remote PC and server out there, but the relay to the building is too slow. So the cameras are too chunky on our computers. By the time it communicates from that server to our server, you get a lot of delay in the video. And so right now everyone's viewing it on their phone because that's faster. But we're going to have to move the computer over here so we have a means of monitoring those cameras that are helpful. We're also looking at a remote device for our security guards when they're out in the field, probably either a tablet or maybe a larger phone, so that they can see those cameras effectively when they're out in the field if they happen to get a call from the parking booth. We're still working through just various, the printer doesn't work on one of the new machines, so they're sending us a new printer from Europe. That machine will print a receipt on the back of the ticket, but that's kind of backup for that. But if you don't take it fast enough, it pulls the ticket back in. So just general little nitnoid types of things we're trying to get corrected and get used to running that new operation out there. I think as we get another month down the road, those things will all improve. We still have to figure out employee parking. Right now, they're just going to come up and we're going to ring them up at the office, but we want to try to come up with a way they can do that online so that we don't have, they don't have to come during office hours. They can just buy their employee parking either through an app, like the parking app which just went hot Friday, or through a portion of our website where you can get in there and put in your own information. And so the app, we just got it up and running on Friday. We're disappointed in one sense that we thought it was going to be able to scan the ticket, but because we have magnetic strips on our tickets, it can't do that. So it's, you have to key in the last 6 numbers on the bottom corner, which wasn't apparent when they were marketing that to us. So that's a little bit disappointing, but it's not really that bad. The biggest problem we've got right now is they're a European company, and the way they're describing what to do doesn't make any sense. It says to key in the last 2 numbers. And there's even a picture of it. It says the last 2 numbers. It took me a while to figure out what they were saying. What they're saying is the number on the bottom of the ticket has 3 groups of numbers. There's like a 3-digit one, then a 2-digit one, and then a 4-digit one. What they want you to do is key in the 2-digit one and the 4-digit one. But if you literally key in the last 2 numbers, it's not that, And so I see now what they're saying. The problem is the 2-digit number is 08 or 04 because it's our ticket readers. So, if no one's ever going to figure that out, if you tell them to key in the last, 2 numbers, you're never going to see 04 as one number. That doesn't make any sense. And so we've suggested a couple different things. We're trying to work with them on the wording on that. We suggested, hey, how about the last 6 digits? That seems like that would be better, or something, and we're still working through that with them. But it does work. We've been testing it some. That'll be a nice feature if people want to use it. Did the signs go up already, or are we still waiting to put those up?
No, we still got to get them up.
Yeah, we just got signs that came on Monday, so we got to get those up so everybody knows.
And then Rod's got to take a permanent marker out there and line through it,
Yeah.
put last 6 digits. Then it'll work. Then they'll figure it out.
Yeah. But bit by bit, the biggest holdup, in terms of where we're the least, made the least progress is trying to get the metered machine transferred. It's a completely different vendor, and they're nearly impossible to contact, and they're very suspicious if we're trying to pull something. We haven't gotten that one transferred yet, but it doesn't have a lot of revenue. So I'm not particularly that concerned about it. We'll eventually figure out how to get that into our name and have it processing our credit cards to us. But for right now, we haven't been able to get that done.
There's no way to change it over to the same company that does this one.
We could buy a new machine, but those are like $13,000, which would be on that machine probably like 10 years of revenue.
10-year payback.
Yeah, it'd be a long time. And we may ultimately do that. We had talked about if we can't figure it out, we could put in one of those cash boxes that you see in like urban downtowns where you feed the dollar into the little box. It's like a post office box and little doors and that kind of thing. And then you just mark what dollar you're in and shove it in that box. We could try that. For right now, we're just hoping we can work through it with this company. But their customer service isn't nearly as good as the one we're dealing with over here, and that's not all that great. So,
how's the prepay down at the baggage claim working out?
That's what we just rolled out on Friday. It just went live on Friday. We were working back and forth with them to get it to work. So we haven't put up the signs for that yet.
So that's different than the app.
No, that is the app.
Okay, but then there's the machine in the baggage.
No, we're not putting one in baggage claim. We're just going to have to pay on your phone.
I thought there was a machine down there.
No,
Okay,
no.
gotcha.
Helena does have a machine there. We could eventually do that if we wanted more capacity. We kind of want to see how the app's going to do because I think that's a pretty convenient one. Really, all you do is you download the app, and then when you pull it up, you put in those couple of digits, and then whatever payment method you have on your phone, it'll just pay it. And then the ticket codes that it's been paid for an hour, so you have a whole hour to get out of the parking lot. So that's a pretty good system.
Okay.
So what's the name of it?
I pay parking.
IT.
Yeah, I is in the letter I. Pay
That will work everywhere then?
There's actually quite a few. If you can see a map, and it'll geolocate. If you turn the geolocate on, it'll geolocate. We're the only ones in town that have it. So right away, it goes straight to the airport, which is kind of nice.
So how much revenue comes off the machines?
Almost nothing. And do you even know what the monthly on that is?
No, we don't know
Why
yet.
don't you
it's-
just make it free?
We could.
Save the pain.
Yeah.
We want to get the machine to work because really the reason we did that was the hourly was overflowing for quite a while. Over here we had no capacity. And so we set that up to offload the capacity. That used to be kind of vendor parking and stuff like that. But I think it was probably built originally for a bus lane. But then when this started overflowing, we opened that up to give people more convenient access, because we figured it was easier for them to park there and then not have to deal with toll plaza. And so people that know it's there use it, and certainly during the holidays people use it, but it doesn't get nearly the usage that the short-term lot does.
So what is there a maximum on that?
There is. Do you remember what that is? Like 6 or 8 hours.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
It's not an overnight.
yeah, it's not an overnight one.
Yeah, you can't overnight park there, and that's one of the reasons we did that. Is
Yeah.
for some reason we went through a spell where there were quite a few Canadians. I think it was the Canadian dollar was really high, who would park in and pay the premium to park overnight up front, and they would just pay it, and so that lot was completely full all the time, and we didn't have anywhere for anyone to park. And so we did that because we wanted high turnover. We wanted people to get in and out of there, so that when someone came to the building and wanted to run in and see off their loved ones, they had a place to park.
Should put a donation box.
The element model?
Vince, all those cars out there are the people who can't figure out how to get out of the lot. Potentially.
Everybody's got a truck, you just go around the curve, go over the curve.
Well, we've seen that one many
Have you?
times too, yeah. But slowly, bit by bit, we're working through these parking issues, and I think every day it gets a little bit better. The ticket counter move, we've communicated, I think, now with all the airlines. United actually came for a visit to look at their space. We got one airline came back with a really, really large space request, which is way bigger than what we can accommodate. So we're trying to work through it with them and figure out if there's a way to skinny up what they're asking for space-wise. So far, I think everyone's pretty enthusiastic about the project. They're anxious to get rid of their baggage systems. Most of those baggage systems are from the 70s, and no one has a parts list or drawings or anything for them. And so when they have to get them fixed, a lot of times they have to get parts made or found. It's not easy. And so I think most of them are pretty excited about the prospect of renovating those areas. But the conversations are going pretty well. I've got an update call with the architect. I think it's actually tomorrow. And we'll see how far he's gotten with all the individual airlines about how much space they want. It'll be interesting. Right now, I think a lot is going to depend on how we want to calculate who has what market share, because right now it's possible United might actually have the largest market share in our market. And so we've got to kind of look at
United or Delta?
United.
United.
Yeah, because Denver has passed Salt Lake now the last 2 months, and without Minneapolis in the market, it's going to be a toss-up as to who will have the dominant market share. So we'll see, but looking ahead, there'll be a little bit of gamesmanship, I think, about who wants what space in the new ticket counter area. Hopefully, it won't be too negative. Sometimes they can kind of get at each other a little bit. I don't know that we'll have that. I think United wants to stay where they are. I don't know if Delta's going to want to try and kick them out. That's probably the biggest contention right there. So we'll see as we get into next month what space everybody wants. Once we kind of get the drawings set for who gets what space, the rest of it should go pretty quickly. We've got to figure out potentially a couple IT moves. I think what we're probably going to tell the airlines is they've got to move their IT racks because number one, we shouldn't really be messing with their equipment. But number two, that might defer some of the gamesmanship in terms of who wants what space if they have to pay that cost. And so the schedule right now would be that we try and get design done towards spring and start to enclose the back of the building probably in the summertime period. I met with TSA last week when we were in Helena, and they do plan to send us some new machinery. They've got a couple feeding belts that they like to use now for the bag screeners, so we're hopeful that we can convince them to move their own machines. The cost to move those machines could be $40,000 if we have to move them and recalibrate them. In talking to TSA, they're going to check and see if there's a chance, since they want to add some equipment to it and they're unhappy with the current configuration, that they might agree to pay for that. So we'll have some work to do with them once we get the drawings set. Right now, we're kind of toying with the idea of maybe going directly to an inline system. In talking to TSA last week, they are rolling out some small inline systems in the state. And if they would do that, then they would pay for more of the conveyor belt, more of the equipment and that type of thing. The biggest question is if we have the volumes to justify that. They've really started to do less of the small systems. So the middle of the building, we know what we want to do on the exterior to enclose the drive belts and where the equipment will park and the pickup belt for the airlines, all that. We know what we want to do with the ticket counter. The main question is what happens between the two. What space does TSA want? How do they want it configured? How do they want it to work? Once we kind of get through the airline ticket counter, that'll be the next set of questions we need to answer with TSA. And then we should be in a pretty good shape to start some of that construction. We're still waiting on determination from FAA about the eligibility rules for Carissa and ARPA. They have not produced the eligibility form yet. We hear from the local folks that they think our project will be eligible. They think it's an excellent type of project to do by creating that additional space down in there. They do think that lends to preventing the spread, which is their criteria that allows you to do projects, but they don't have any criteria yet to determine if it's eligible. In addition, they have now a timeline. We have to spend that money in 4 years from when we received it, which was last summer. So we're on the clock, and they can't really tell us what the rules are about how we get it approved. And so we've started some internal discussions about the possibility, and of all things, at the meeting, they again reiterated, look, the other thing you can do is pay your operating costs with this money, and then just take the money you would have used for your operating costs and use that for whatever you want. So at the same time, they're inventing rules and inventing the intent to make more rules. They're telling you the way to loop around all the rules, which is kind of silly. But we've started some internal discussions about the potential of doing that, of basically paying for operations for 2 years entirely out of Carissa and ARPA, and then using that savings to pay for the ticket counter move. The biggest problem with that, and really I'm surprised the FAA is going around and promoting that, is it creates an odd contractual problem with the airlines because, basically we're supposed to, do our operating expenses to the extent we can pay for them with revenue. We do that first, and then they cover the difference. Well, if you're paying for everything with these grant dollars, they could make the argument that you're not really fulfilling the intent of that, and that is true at airports across the country. So you're kind of creating this, odd contractual situation, and it's not really clear how that would be adjudicated if the airlines are disagreeable to, that arrangement. And so we're having those discussions. We're kind of hoping the FAA will come out with rules. They like our project. They think it meets the intent. So I think we'll wait a little bit longer before we start doing any of that. But we are starting to clean up the CARES, the original CARES money. Some of the stuff we thought we would spend the money on is cost less than we expected, and so we have a little bit of savings there. I think we figured out 600,000. This is gone. About 600,000 still remains in that pot. So we may start paying off some things with that and having that money available to help start on the ticket counter project. So we might start submitting some payroll and some things like that so that we can have some dollars ready to begin paying bills on that project. So that's kind of a general update on the ticket counter and where we are with the CARES ARPA Carissa situation. Do you have a question?
I do have a question. I think you might have alluded to it in one of your weekly reports about potentially the airlines vying for space. I'm trying to figure out, in an airport our size, I know location, but this isn't like you walk by and go, oh, United's closest to the escalator, I think I'll buy a ticket. You already have your ticket.
Sure.
And it's not a mile walk. What is the impetus for carrying that much?
It's a really good question, and it goes back to many moons ago when you used to buy your tickets at the at the counter.
At the
and-
counter?
Yeah, and
I think
there
it's
was-
bragging rights.
you know, there was a huge
crazy.
kerfuffle like SeaTac over having the first position when you drove in. That's where everybody wanted to be there. United
Wow.
Alaska would buy back and forth, you know, about who had the most market share. It's just, it is what they've done for many years. And it's not just them. The rental cars used to be worse. I remember we had a rental car vendor go bankrupt, and we had 3 empty counters. And so I went down to the rental cars and called a meeting, this is in Colorado Springs, and said, hey, you know, this counter's empty, would anybody want it? And that simple meeting ended up in all of our counter space being rented. I mean, one, I won't say who, one vendor had 20 positions in Colorado Springs. The counter was enormous. I mean, it would literally stretch from this wall out to the plane collection. It was enormous. And they just saw that as, well, we can get a bigger sign, we can have all this space, you know, it'll look like we have something really going here. You know, and it was senseless, you know, but I mean, it was great for us. I mean, we rented a whole bunch more space. And so there's just something they kind of get over on each other by making each other move.
Yeah.
They think it's, you know, poking at them a little bit. So I don't know. I wish I could explain it.
Tradition.
They're both Sky West.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of pulling on trees, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
That's
that's
that's kind of what it must be, because nothing else makes any sense.
no, it doesn't make any sense.
Do we anticipate any, or is there any forecast changes now that Canada's opening up next week?
I don't know what to expect out of
Anybody?
that.
No discussion?
We started some advertising up there for the first time in a year and a half. We just ran some Facebook ads up there. And for some reason, in the early morning hours, every day, we're getting a lot of people asking about the ad. And so I've been answering them when I get up every morning. There's always 2 or 3 on there, just asking basic questions about the airfares that we've gone on there. So there's certainly interest. How that translates into action will be a good question. The Canadians don't get free testing in the U.S. unless they don't ask. You know, so like a Luvian is not asking anyone where they're from. You know, so you could probably go there and give them your cell phone number and get a free test. I've been told that other pharmacies are charging up to $150 for a test. And they do ask for your insurance information, and if you don't have a local insurance, you got to pay that. So I think that's going to be an issue. The Visitors Bureau, along with the Chamber, took it on at the visitors meeting to research where Canadians could get tested. We had heard, I think I actually heard from Casey, that there's a rapid test at the border that you can use, and you can do it right there, and it's ready in 15 minutes. And so
Coming in?
yeah, going to Canada.
Yeah.
Because
It's
they're
not asked, they make you.
Make you, right. And
That's with me, because I
Was it
accidentally
you?
ended up in Canada.
Yeah, oh, that's right.
Whoops.
That's right. You didn't need to go to Canada. I was like, no, why would Vince go to Canada?
Trust me. That's a long story, but.
Yeah, and so if that's the case, and that's a free test and it's readily available, I think as that word gets out, I think we might see more people trying to return. But Canada is still going to require you to have a test to get in, even if you're vaccinated. So, you know, that kind of makes it. And then the other question, and I've tried finding it anywhere, and I haven't found it yet, so if you guys know, let me know, but there's still no indication of kids, like small children, whether or not they, you know, what do you have to provide for them? And because obviously they can't be vaccinated yet, but in a couple of weeks they can be, you know, but are they going to require a vaccination for children or not? Because, you know, I mean, a lot of parents, I mean, like me, my kids had it, I'm not planning to get her vaccinated. You know, that may rule me out from crossing the border
Wow.
for a while. So
relative to the question about the Canadian border, it's an interesting situation that's going on right now in Great Falls. It's because somebody is putting together in Canada a package that they're selling to people that go south for the winter. And so they wanted to bring in a 737, and our local customs at the airport said we can't handle an aircraft of that size. So they downsized it to a Beech 1900, which is a 19-seater. And so the Canadians put their cars on a car hauler, and that's driven across the border, and they hook up with it over here at the Crystal Inn and the Flying J, and they unload their cars. They fly down, they clear customs here in Great Falls, and what I don't know is I don't think the airport customs port of entry is requiring vaccination. So they come back, they come into the United States.
Are they driving in, Dwight?
No, they're
They're
flying
flying
in
in
on
on
beach
beach
and
19.
then they reached out to us to shuttle them over to their cars, and then they get in their car and head to Arizona.
Canada's got the same
And
requirements.
So then this is 2 flights a day, and it went on all last week, and it's continuing on this week. So I was kind of doing the math on that. That was 180 people last week, and here we're on that same road again this week. And I thought, well, why would they do this if the border is opening up? And they may have already committed to it.
Yeah, probably.
And then one passenger admitted that it cost him $3,000 to do this. I don't know if that was for a couple or that was an individual, but they're spending some money to get out of the Canadian winter, I guess.
They still have to be tested prior to coming here, have to have a negative test. 3 days, it's not the 72 hours like when you're going to Canada, it's 3 days. I mean, it all sounds the same, but the US is a little more lax, they'll give you the 3 days. But they still have to be tested prior to coming in to the States. So I'd have to think
So
customs.
it's just
would be
interesting
checking.
that our port of entry sat there with nothing to do for a year. And now they're sweating bullets, they're clearing so many people through there every day.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It's disappointing.
And
to
we'll see
hear
if it continues after Monday.
It's disappointing to hear, see that they won't handle a 7.3 again, too.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Can they not physically? I mean,
Well, it was too many
manpower-wise?
people at once, too many people at once. So they just switched up, the charter company switched up and is just doing the 1900s and doing multiple flights.
So did they give you an indication what they are willing to do and what they're,
No, I didn't get in on that side of it. I hearsay on my part.
yeah, we probably should have another meeting with them again. I think the last time around, they settled at like 49, wasn't it? Passengers
I
per
just don't
flight.
remember, it's been so long ago, but.
But then they allowed a whole bunch of larger
It
firefighting
didn't stop the
flights.
process. The process just found a different way to do it in a smaller aircraft, same company.
What's the name of that?
SunWest
Sun
Aviation, but
West,
there's
yeah.
a broker that's packaging all this together, with the cars and then selling one thing to somebody. Yeah, somebody's enterprising. Maybe they're the ones that are seeing your ads, John.
We should definitely contact them.
It'll be a moot point next week.
Actually, one of the things that you can do is, if you're worried about availability of tests and meeting test requirements, is pre-purchase them and do online testing over a video. That's what I did.
I hadn't heard that one yet.
Oh,
When you
yeah.
say pre-purchase from where?
I'd have to,
You can do that in Atlanta. You can make a reservation for a test.
yeah, you can do that.
I was gonna go to Lima a couple weeks ago, and it's like, well, geez, I mean, what do I need to do? How do I get my 3 days? You can actually physically make a reservation in Atlanta. By the time you land, you get to the place, get your test, you get results in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, and away you go. But
Yeah, I always have to have a backup plan.
that's what it was.
No
Was that
staffing,
I
no
was gonna
this,
take a
no
test
that.
here, and if I didn't get those results
Yes.
in time, then I would do it there.
And Canada's requiring a specific test, right? They're doing
They've got to have- yeah.
the FCR test.
Yep, that's the
So
only way you can get in there.
I don't remember the specifics of mine, and I can send you the link, but I got 6 of them. 6 tests for $150.
And you can't even get that test in Great Falls,
And so you
at
can,
least in a timely fashion.
you can take it.
Nova will do it, but yeah, it's not
You
timely.
can take it anytime, and you just have to be online with them for 15 minutes, and they watch you do it, and then they see the results, and then they send you what you need for your airline or your country. And so that way, if suddenly COVID knocked out all the pharmacy people here and there was no one to do tests, what are you gonna do? So we have those, and planned on using them on both ends of our trip, and we did. And then we had extras in case we got a bad reading or something, but
case
we
you have
had that peace of
positive, you have more
mind.
time.
The weird thing we saw was in Salt Lake City, the COVID test thing is on the inside
For connecting
of
flights.
security. So you've got to have already have checked in, got a boarding pass and everything to come, and then you find out you got COVID? I mean, that seemed like crazy.
It's for the connecting flights, though, I'm sure. For like people
Going to
that
the
are
international.
Going to the international, because you're coming in from, you know,
Oh,
Ottumwa,
okay, 'cause I'm like, that
you know,
doesn't make any
Iowa,
sense.
and,
Yeah.
you know, and then connecting
Okay.
to a flight to, you know.
That might be, yeah, we couldn't figure that out. But yeah, I can't think of the name of the thing. I read about it through a travel writer, and so.
What a job watching somebody do that
Oh,
all day
trust
long,
me.
you know?
On the internet.
Yeah.
I think they probably, well, I'm not going to say why.
So things might even get busier next week after Canada.
Well, I mean, certainly we would love to see that. I mean, you know, that we're still way down on volume with the business travelers not traveling right now.
Not on United. You can't even get to Denver.
Well, and United's full because, you know, Minneapolis and now Seattle is
Yeah.
cutting back. And Seattle waited so long to cut back even their first flight, the morning flight that they dropped, that they're having to rebook on United and others because they don't have the seating capacity to handle it with one flight.
Yeah.
You know, and so now they're dropping to 5 a week, which is going to make it even worse. And again, reservations were purchasable before they made that schedule change. So it's going to be a real mess. And, you know, we're hopeful that, you know, United might be able to add some capacity even now, a larger plane or something,
That would be awesome.
you know, to help us through the next few months.
You talked to the schedulers when they were here?
We definitely did, and the guy that was here just last week was, you know, we showed him all the numbers. He's like, he said he would go back and talk again to scheduling
Good.
and say that, you know, look, I mean, the station can handle more seats right now. So we're hopeful that something will come out of that, but of course, everyone is short of planes and short of people to fly them right now, so.
Well,
still-
Alaska just sent out a special today for holiday travel. I wonder how many seats there are. Yeah.
But I would buy those because you're going to get bought off the plane for about, the going rate downstairs is as high as $2,000 some days right now.
To get bought off.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
There you go.
That's better than Bitcoin,
I
right?
know, right?
I'll put it this way, I've got to go to work. My backup is to go to Helena on Delta because I can get a direct flight at 6 o'clock that gets me to San Fran at 9, which you can't do out here. And then I'm going to Germany next month, and I'm going to Bozeman because I can go direct to Chicago.
Right,
And it works out easy. So,
Yeah.
yeah. You have to work around. All right, TSA move.
Oh, we still got a couple more things.
We still got.
A couple more here. The Christmas party is December 15th as it's currently scheduled. Hopefully that date works for folks.
But it's easy enough to move if you guys come back
What
and
day is
say
that?
that it's a Wednesday. So we haven't put anything in concrete. If there's a problem, let us know sooner than later. We just have to let Oakwells know because we take both of those rooms. But they're still, I mean, during the week, they aren't full. It's, if we were trying to take a weekend, we'd have problems, but,
Well, it's far enough out, I think we ought to be able to work around that.
yeah.
Okay. And then lastly, we are working on some new employee hires. Laura, do you want to just give a quick update on everybody we've got coming in?
Yeah, we have a new LEO starting on the 29th in 3 days of October. His name is Brian Ike, and he's from Colorado. He's very excited to be moving to Great Falls, and he's an outdoorsman and loves everything that Montana has to offer, coming from the Denver area, a little south of Denver. So, but he came up and visited, and he's got some family members in Montana. So we think he's going to be a great fit, and we're excited about him. So that's one of the new positions. What? You have something to say? No? You look like you do.
Well, I would ask that question, do you like to fish and hunt? And some go, oh, God, yes, I would. I never hire them.
Yes, that is
I
true.
never for 'em.
Yep. But the way we have the LEO schedule set right now,
You'll
they
never have
work,
time to fish in.
they work 8 on, 6 off. And so it really affords some time to go out and do those fun things. And so they can fish on those days. We did extend an offer to another LEO who did not accept the offer.
Oh, okay.
He got married this weekend, and we thought he was a great one too. And he just said he talked it over with his now wife and decided that it was too much, too soon to jump in a car and move right now. So we have that position still open. We extended an offer to a mechanic airfield mechanic who is coming from Washington. He will start at the end of November, and he's got some great skills and experience, and we're really excited for him too. He came this last week and brought his family. He's got some friends here. His brother was stationed at Melmstrom for 8 years, so he's familiar with the area and very pleased to be coming to Montana.
And he's anxious to get out of Pasco, which is now swollen to 500,000.
Well, yes. I wasn't putting the negative part in it. I was concentrating on the positive. It's an interesting situation. We've never had 4 positions open at one time, but adding the 2 and then, just what's happened, we've never had 4 positions open, but they're all looking that probably going to be filled by out-of-staters. And normally, we've had maybe 1 out-of-state candidate slip in there every couple of jobs that we have. So it's a very different environment out there.
So you're saying you don't even have applications from in town right now?
Mm-mm. No, not. I mean, I've gotten a couple, but no, it's out-of-staters trying to get out of where
Yeah,
they
it makes
are.
sense on the LEO jobs. Between the vaccine mandates and some of those police departments and the environment that they're asked to work in right now in some of those cities.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good for them, for sure. And we have maintenance, airfield maintenance, that position. We have an interview tomorrow that is a real skilled gentleman as well. So just those 2 filled right now, 2 open, but we're getting good candidates, and it's exciting to see that. So.
Are they relocating on their own dimes in this
Yes.
situation? Okay.
They're all making a ton off of their house sales.
Oh,
They're
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, and hopefully they can find a home here.
Yeah.
Maybe in Sun Prairie or Sun River. What else?
The only other thing is Love's is intending to open next month here in just a couple weeks. So I think before Thanksgiving is their plan right now. You probably saw the paving over there. With that paving going down, we're probably going to start contacting the landowners over there to start talking about Airport Avenue B. The city election is coming up in 2 weeks, and after we get that kind of settled out, that'll give us another opportunity to go back and hopefully get the concurrence of everybody down there, and then go approach the city about closing Airport Avenue B. We did push that project to redo the roadway down another year. That's because the FAA wanted us to have an airfield paving project in the upcoming year so that they could make the justification for the discretionary monies that we're expecting to get. We're going to get discretionary money for the de-icing ramp. They're also planning to give us discretionary money for the snow blower. Of course, we've heard that for 2 years now. But it looks like both those things may come up in the next few months. And so to make their job easier, they want to ensure that we're doing some airfield paving in that cycle. So we're going to extend the GA taxi lane to the terminus up near the frontage road, essentially right here. We're going to push that taxiway all the way up into this area here. That'll open up development of a couple more rows of hangars, including a row of T hangars. Right now we have a developer interested in doing some T hangar development up there. And so we are hoping that as we get into spring, the reserves are going to hold up pretty well, and that we would have enough cash that we could go ahead and do that paving potentially this summer, and then we would reimburse ourselves with 2023 AIP funds when they come in approximately a year, year and a half, something like that. And so that's the current plan. We'll see, if that development interest continues. Also, we'll kind of see where the reserves are after the beginning of the year. Right now, because FedEx hasn't signed their new lease, we continue to collect quite a bit of additional revenue. We also have the lease to Ashley Furniture out there on the frontage road, and the landing fees and the passenger concessions are ahead of plan on the budget. So right now, it looks as though we'll have a pretty solid reserve by the time we get to, and in addition, during the budget cycle, we were also planning the airlines to sign the airline agreement. Because they haven't, the rates are actually higher than we had initially thought in the budget too. So we have quite a bit of additional revenue right now. So we think by the time we get to spring, we should have plenty in the reserve account to handle both that project and handle the utility construction at the warehouses. As you remember, that project's about $1 million out of pocket. And then we'll get reimbursed from TIF proceeds, ideally about a year from now, or well, let's see, 2020, a year, 2 years from now. We should be reimbursed from TIF funds, but that's a lot of draw for us. $2 million out of reserves is a substantial amount of reserves. Right now, I think we have enough to do it. We'll know more as we get through spring and kind of see how this last year ended when we get the audit results. That's all I have.
Okay, well, back on the Loves real quick, and then we'll open up. The two issues that we had as the construction went along was the berm. And what's the status of the berm on with the 911 building? Has that been terminated? It looks like they're paving right up to the shrubs.
Yeah, I don't know. We had told, obviously that was a condition of the cities to approve their development agreement. And so we did get a comment back from Loves. They came back and the city had sent them back to us and said, well, that would be hard to landscape. And so they came, they said, if the that's between you and the airport. We told Loves, contact the city again, that was their requirement. And we told them if they no longer are requiring that, then don't build it. We don't really want it. So my understanding is that, well, obviously they were able to pull the permit, and so I think that got resolved, and I don't know that they're going to be building that berm. And if you go there and look, there's a pretty significant grade break already. So you've got a pretty high curve. That's probably a 6-inch pan. And then on top of that, right behind that, those bushes are up like another foot.
Yep.
So if the real concern is you might ram the building somehow through, instead of going through the entryway, which is right next to it, if somehow you decided you wanted to go through the bushes to ram the building, it would be really hard to do that. So I think maybe that's resolved itself. But we're not really tracking it right now because they've been able to pull the permit. And as far as we're concerned, it's between them and the city.
And then the last part with MDT was the drainage into that one. You see that huge pipe/pump? Is that what they decided?
That was what they decided. So
That's all approved, so.
Instead of having a head wall and they just have that slope, and hopefully it'll hold together pretty well. Those soils it's a lot of sandstone. I can't imagine it coming from.
Yeah, imagine they'll fill it full of riprap anyway.
That's a huge drainage area too that they built. I was expecting a lot more paved parking, and all of a sudden you've got a room for a lake in there.
And it's a massive paved area. Rod and I were up on that project last week, and they paved practically the entire 3 acres. So they've got a pretty good pond for that, which is good. And that goes, that pond drains down the interstate there, so none of it goes into our basin, which is fine. They've worked that out now with the MDT, so.
Good.
At the MDT one, it's just an overflow. It's not going to flow down the constant.
It's mostly going to go in that lake, right? It's got to get pretty high before it goes through that culvert.
Yeah.
So. And that soil perks pretty quickly, so I would be surprised if much ever comes out of that pipe. Any standing water up here goes away pretty quickly.
It's a retention pond by design, so any of the surface flows won't fill that and then they'll percolate into the ground. It's directly similar to I-State across the road.
Perfect. Good. You can't complain about that, right? Just like the other guys.
They will complain down here where it's percolating through the hillside, but.
Good. Gotcha. Okay. And then I know we missed it last month, is all of the TSA employee room moved to the other side, all complete as of when, and are they happy, and is all the painting and...
Oh, that's the funny thing.
We're not happy till you're not happy.
They are completely moved, and I think their systems are working. Do you know what the computer situation is?
Yeah, they're moved in there. I just talked to Stephanie this morning, and the holdup they've had was their security system. That all got resolved
so they
a couple weeks
mandated
ago.
a vendor for that, and then the vendor kind of didn't quite have the system working right. So there for a while, we were kind of in between, but then we stepped out of the middle and just said, you guys need to
Figure this out.
sort it out, because you mandated this vendor.
So they completed everything that was in their contract with Guy Tobacco. Now they're just looking for a change order. They want to put insulation over the ceilings in their different office areas, so I'm just waiting for a quote from Tobacco on that, but they want to try to soundproof it a little bit more, so.
They can hear
Chris.
Chris. Yeah.
And Chris might hear them.
So are they totally moved out of downstairs here now?
Yes.
Yeah.
We can demo those now anytime.
Awesome. And that hallway that goes back around there is not a security issue with
No.
people wandering back there? There's no way to access?
No, there's one door back there through their old space, but it's locked and.
Yeah, so that area is now available for the project. And it's possible too, I mean, just so you guys know, because the airline space requests have gotten a little larger than we expected, we've also told them that we could do a one floor expansion out behind in this grassy area here to provide, break rooms if that's something they all desire. I'm happy to give them more space if that's really what they feel they need in the long term. But we would have to add on to the building down there. It could be relatively light construction, and I think we can make it work with the building okay. But that was one thing we've offered. Hopefully, we won't have to do that. Eventually, the terminal would probably progress that way, but I'm hoping we don't have to do it now. So, yeah, and we did get a letter from GSA, or it actually was an email, and the presidential mandate is that all government contractors have to be vaccinated, and so they're trying to extend that to include airports because they're including us as a government contractor. So they've asked for an amendment to the lease that would require that not only we provide proof of vaccination, but then we would extend that to contractors that we have, like our janitorial or anyone else that might be come in contact with TSA. And so we're not likely to sign that, just out of hand. I contacted Kalispell to see what their thoughts are, because they heard them mention that they held a conference last week. And we'll probably poke around at that a little bit and just kind of see. I don't love the precedent of a federal agency just deciding they can amend the contract whenever they want. So at a minimum, we'll probably try to extract some higher rent and maybe some other things out of that. If we're going to open the contract all the time, we feel we have to push back a little bit. Alternatively, we've got a nice parking lot that they can have meetings in their cars and yell back and forth. At some point, we're just going to have to draw the line, and they've continued to cost us every time we've tried to deal with them on properties issues. I don't know that in the future we can continue to do that. I mean, there's almost not a rent high enough for the amount of time that they consume, in our staff time and in our project costs and in everything else. And this is yet another illustration. I can't imagine Western is going to be able to keep janitors if we're mandating that they produce vaccines and this, that, and the other thing. So we just got that on Friday, and we're working our way through it.
And then last question, but not least, on the warehouse utilities, came out in the last board or notes was you guys are ready to start pushing utilities underneath the road?
Yeah, so here in about 2 weeks, we think we're going to go and bore the utilities underneath the frontage road. We did get one bid on that. We worked on the bill a little bit. We carved a few thousand out of it. How much was it, Chris?
5,000.
5,000 out of it. What was the, and how much higher than the engineer's estimate does that leave us?
10% higher than what we had estimated. So they came down significantly in price.
So we're still 10% higher than the estimate?
Yes.
After the 5?
Yes.
Yeah, and we were, 18% high ahead of that?
More than that.
Was it? Yeah. And so, it is the bid environment we're in. Things are just more expensive. I know the casings that they're going to need under that road, they couldn't even get in the springtime. Now we can get them. That's one of the reasons we want to do it this fall is while we can get the materials, we want to get them in the ground. And then it also frees up the utility contractor in the spring to just go. We're not dependent on anyone else's schedule at that point because they can just pass the pipe through the sleeve. So we do plan to get that work done before Thanksgiving.
How big a casing underneath the road?
30-inch for water and 30 for sewer.
Wow,
It's a massive casing.
big casing.
Yeah.
Okay, questions, comments? All right. Okay, well, since there is no agenda, we will finish up with Airport Authority Board comments. Commissioner Gibbs? None? Commissioner Smith? Commissioner Evans? And I have no additional comments. Any additional public comments? Excellent. All right, with no further business to come before the board, I declare this meeting adjourned. Does anybody need a pit stop before we start the work session? I think it should be quick. Okay, meeting adjourned and
Okay.